Hello, YouTube video watchers. My name's Eric Henschel, and I'm here to talk to you about some quantum physics. Uh, I'm by no means qualified by any university or acknowledged by any credible source, but I think my ideas are rather out there, and I'd like to share some with you. I'd like to start off with discussing the fourth spatial dimension, which I believe to be supersymmetric light energy. Okay, this will help explain problems such as quantum gravity. It'll also explain why photons are emitted when electrons go into what is called a quantum hole or a quantum well. But I'll get into that at a later point. Let's start off with just the axis of the fourth spatial dimension. Alright, my problem with today's theories is nobody ever has a dimension that explains mass or matter. Okay? I understand mass is just a quantity, so matter is really what I'm getting at, and it doesn't really ever explain energy either. They explain dots, lines, three-dimensional figures, and then they say time. And then there's a string theory that just needs a bunch of dimensions to make the calculations work, which I don't believe is right. I prefer it simplified. So I looked at it rather simply. Okay, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Cartesian plane, but the Cartesian plane looks something like this. Okay, X, Y, and Z. That's our three-dimensional world that we live in. Height, depth, and length. Alright, so what I decided to do from there was take that and use those three axes to come up with an equation which was rather simple, just using a permutation. Since there's only three axes, I used three permutated. Okay, for those of you who do not know what a permutation is, this is a permutation. It's with an exclamation mark, and it basically is 3 times 2 plus 2 times 1 plus 1 times 0, so I just put 0, and then I just put the total 8. Okay. But the interesting thing is, now attribute a primary color to X, Y, and Z. Okay? And for those of you who also don't understand what a permutation actually is, it's every variation possible for that number. There's 8 ways to arrange 3 objects. So, you end up with having the next dimensional axis having 8 axes. And when we attribute a primary color to each of those X, Y, and Z, and as you can see in this drawing that I have temporarily misplaced, and I've just found, sorry about that guys, bear with me. Okay. You get something like this. Okay. It's very hard to draw the cube with a Sharpie, so bear with me. But just think about it and draw it with a pencil. It's very easy. Just make sure that you have no duplicates of the arrows going in the same direction, and you'll end up with every color of the rainbow for each vertice. Okay? This seems very simple to me because that explains why when you refract light through a prism, you get every color. And it just seems so simple to attribute X, Y, and Z to primary colors that I don't know why nobody's ever thought to do that. On top of that, I would also like to address the fact that a four-dimensional object such as a photon will be able to accelerate with a single burst of energy and continue accelerating without any resistance. And it will constantly fold into itself and out of itself, so it'll be contracting and expanding constantly. Okay, and the way this factors into light in a very interesting fashion in the wave particle duality of light is whatever portion of the photon which is in the actual fourth dimension will have a certain vertice closest to our three-dimensional world, because we can only perceive one portion of it at a time. So we're left with what we see as one color, and when it collapses into itself, that's when we're left with a particle. That's why different colors have different wavelengths. As for the quantum gravity comment that I made earlier, I'll just touch on this lightly and then get in depth later in another video. Quantum gravity, I believe the problem with quantum gravity is all other fundamental forces are not being exerted on three-dimensional vehicles, meaning they don't have to put up with resistance such as wind resistance, friction, whatever, you name it. Pressure. Energy does not have to deal with that. But since gravity is exerting itself on three-dimensional objects, that is why the energy is such a minute amount compared to the other forces, because it's lost all its energy due to the resistance that it experiences being transferred its energy to three-dimensional objects. So let me know what you think, and I'll keep you posted. Eric Henschel, over and out.